Well, welcome back. We're with Congressman Kevin Brady, who's about to retire in January, and he's going to work hard until then.
Sir.
We'll continue our conversation. You know, Congressman, whatever the Republican Party does from this point going forward, it seems there may be a little bit of a challenge to not be painted with the insurrection brush. I mean, what happened to your party in January 6th, or from many people in your party? Now, I wouldn't say your party, but in January 6th, the first time in the United States that a president didn't concede a defeat, and then a lot of the people who charged the Capitol were either Republicans or Trump-Republicans, or however you want to. And so your party has kind of been painted with that. How do you avoid having that stigma continue to be a part of what goes on?
Yeah, I always think it's dangerous to stereotype a party based on the actions of a few. It was despicable. There's no excuse for it. I want everyone involved in that held responsible, period. But that isn't the Republican Party. And I think, too, when you look at coming up here in the next week, we're going to see the commitment to America, really the focus of House Republicans. Should America give us a chance to lead in the House again, what you're going to see is a focus on restoring a strong economy, restoring really workers and families, putting them first, restoring privacy issues and more freedom in the economy. That is ultimately, that commitment is who we are as a party. And I think people, when they see that, it'll cut through all the fog, and people go, okay, if that's what you're going to do, you know, that's what we're going to support.
And you're also the party that basically kicked Liz Cheney out because she didn't go along with the president who said the election was stolen.
You know,
that's simplifying it, but that's pretty much what happened.
So I was there, so I see it differently. I really think I backed Liz Cheney in her role as a conference chair, even after the impeachment vote. She's been a fearless conservative for many years, and I've always admired her. I think this was her choice, to decide to focus on President Trump and keep him from office through any means necessary. It was a personal choice on her behalf, and remains her priority. And so, look, I respect her choice to do that. My priorities have been different, obviously, in Congress. I think driving the economy, trying to find common ground where we can on a number of big issues, opening up trade, issues like that, to me, are where I've been focused.
Are people wrong to look at the Republican Party and think that it's not the Trump Party still at this point in terms of the influence of the former president?
Well, I think, look, just as the Democrat Party is Joe Biden, right now the Republican Party continues to be led by President Trump and heavily influenced, as you know. But in a few weeks, we're not going to be voting on President Trump. We're going to be voting a referendum on Joe Biden's presidency and in one-party rule in Congress. And I think, frankly, it's going to go very well for Republicans. People are very disappointed in this president and the Democrat Congress.
And I know for sure that that's exactly the way Republicans want this to be focused.
Well, it should be. President Trump's not in office. The inflation is not his. The rise in crime is not his. The open borders, the fentanyl crisis is not his. And the fact that right now people are skipping meals. Right. 1 out of 4 Americans are delaying retirement. Inflation is crushing them. And that's Joe Biden's policies.
Well, and we talked about this earlier. We know that the inflation is some of Joe Biden, but you haven't told me anything about how Republicans would have kept inflation from happening.
Well,
so
be glad to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah. So one, we would not have spent $2 trillion as we were already coming out of the COVID economic issue. President Trump had created 12 million jobs after COVID by then.
And I remember that was
fueled inflation.
And I do remember that was a discussion point when this was going to be happening, that people were saying, well, maybe we shouldn't. But it wasn't really one of those hardcore Republican / Democrats, all Republicans.
It was. Absolutely. There wasn't a Republican who voted for that rescue plan. For those, I mean, just honest disagreements about doing that. And so, I think that's been. The other thing is, don't make it worse. The president spent almost $4 trillion up over and above the budget, including the Inflation Reduction Act, which is going to drive inflation further. The student loan forgiveness is going to drive inflation further. And so for us, stop doing the things that make inflation worse. The other thing is, Cambrell, We just need people back to work. Unless we don't have people to assemble products, deliver the products, service the products, that's why inflation is going to continue for several years. The White House, honestly, has not spent of that $4 trillion a dime on how we reconnect people to work, because that's really key in growing regions and states like ours, really key.
So you make a good point about all those different things that Republicans think are really important going forward for the midterms. President Biden recently gave a speech. He talked about what he called MAGA Republicans. And listen to what he said.
Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very foundations of our republic. They embrace anger. They thrive on chaos. They live not in the light of truth, but in the shadow of lies.
So we can see how that's being laid out, at least from his standpoint. Your thoughts about his comments, and are there different people who make up parts of the Republican Party who are, quote, MAGA? It's almost like Democrats have progressives. Republicans have people who are farther to the right than right, who take up the category of what the president called MAGA Republicans.
Yeah, I think I was awfully disappointed. In my whole time, I've never seen a presidential address to the nation more divisive and more hateful. I was there on Inauguration Day when he raised his hand, and I remember him saying, I'm going to put my whole heart and soul into uniting this country, treating our opponents with dignity and respect. And clearly, as the whole country saw, none of that is true today. And I think a president ought to be figuring out how to unite a country, not giving a campaign speech that polarizes the country even further. I think it was a horrible mistake on his part.
So we skirted around it a little bit. Would you want to see the former president run again?
I leave that up to him. I think should he run, he's going to be in a very strong position within the Republican Party and in a strong position to win back the White House. After that, should he choose not to run, man, our bench is so deep and so qualified that I feel really good about our nominee through this process.